Good morning. This is PJ. It is Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. We're here for our 3 daily lectionary readings. Once again, we are now beginning in our psalm. It's going to be Psalm 118, 1 and 2, and then 14 and 24. Then we jump to the Old Testament, which is going to be 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 through 15. And then our New Testament reading comes from the Gospel of Luke. Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 12. Let us listen in to our scriptures for today. Psalm 118. Thank God because He's good, because His love never quits. Tell the world, Israel, His love never quits. And you, clan of Aaron, tell the world, His love never quits. And you who fear God, join in. His love never quits. Pushed to the wall, I called to God. From the wide open spaces, He answered. God's now at my side, and I'm not afraid. Who would dare lay a hand on me? God's my strong champion. I flick off my enemies like flies. Far better to take refuge in God than trust in people. Far better to take refuge in God than trust in celebrities. Hemmed in by barbarians, in God's name I rubbed their faces in the dirt. Hemmed in and no way out. In God's name I rubbed their faces in dirt. Like swarming bees, like wild prairie fire, they hemmed me in. In God's name I rubbed their faces in the dirt. I was right on the cliff edge, ready to fall, when God grabbed and held me. God's my strength, He's also my song, and now He's my salvation. Hear the shouts, hear the triumph songs in the camp of the saved. The hand of God has turned the tide. The hand of God is raised in victory. The hand of God has turned the tide. I didn't die, I lived, and now I'm telling the world what God did. God tested me. He pushed me hard, but He didn't hand me over to death. Swing wide the city gates, the righteous gates. I'll walk right through and thank God. This temple gate belongs to God, so the victors can enter and praise. Thank you for responding to me. You're truly become my salvation. The stone the masons discarded as flawed is now the capstone. This is God's work. We rub our eyes. We can hardly believe it. This is the very day God acted. Let's celebrate and be festive. Salvation now. God, salvation now. Oh yes, God, a free and full life. Our Old Testament reading comes from the book of 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 through 16. David mustered the pick of the troops of Israel, 30 divisions of them. Together with his soldiers, David headed for Baalah to recover the chest of God, which was called by the name God of the angel armies, who was enthroned over the pair of angels on the chest. They placed the chest of God on a brand new ox cart and removed it from Abinad's house on the hill. Uzzah and Ahiah, Abinad's son, were driving the new cart loaded with the chest of David. Io in the lead and Uzzah along the chest. David and the whole company of Israel were in the parade, singing at the top of their lungs and playing mandolins, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. When they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, the oxen stumbled. So Uzzah reached out and grabbed the chest of God. God blazed in anger against Uzzah and struck him hard because he had profaned the chest. Uzzah died on the spot, right alongside the chest. Then David got angry because of God's deadly outburst against Uzzah. That place is called Perez Uzzah, the explosion against Uzzah. David became fearful of God that day and said, "This chest is too dangerous to handle. How can I ever get it back to the city of David?" He refused to take the chest a step further. Instead, David removed it off the road into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. The chest of God stayed at that house of Obed-Edom the Gibeonite for 3 months. And God prospered Obed-Edom and his entire household. It was reported to King David that God had prospered Obed-Edom and his entire household because of the chest of David. So David thought, I'll get that blessing for myself, and went and brought up the chest of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David, celebrating extravagantly all the way, with frequent sacrifices of choice bulls. David, ceremonially dressed in priest linen, danced in great abandon before God. The whole country was with him as he accompanied the chest of God with shouts and trumpet blasts. But as the chest of God came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, happened to be looking out the window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before God, her heart filled with scorn. Our New Testament reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, verses 1 through 12. At the crack of dawn on Sunday, the woman came to the tomb carrying the burial spices that they had prepared. They found the entrance stone rolled back from the tomb, so they walked in. But once inside, they couldn't find the body of their master, Jesus. They were puzzled, wondering what to make of this. Then, out of nowhere, it seemed, two men, light cascading over them, stood there. The men were awestruck and bowed down in worship. The men said, "Why are you looking for the living one in the cemetery? He is not here, but raised up. Remember how he told you were still back in Galilee, that he had to be handed over to the sinners, to be killed on a cross, and in 3 days rise up?" They remembered Jesus' words. They left the tomb and broke the news of all of this to the 11 and the rest. Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them kept telling these things to the apostles. But the apostles didn't believe a word of it. They thought they were making it all up. But Peter jumped to his feet and ran to the tomb. He stooped in to look in and saw a few grave clothes. That's all. He walked away puzzled, shaking his head. Here ends our readings for the day.